Royal Standley of Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, offering securities through United Planners Financial Services member FINRA SIPC, guides clients with empathy in discovering and reaching their financial goals, and creates financial plans for clients so they can live their life by design. In these episodes, he relates his expert financial insights and discusses timely topics. Royal strives for excellence and has a passion for sharing his knowledge and supporting his community. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Life by Design with Royal Standley of Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors. Royal, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Eric?
I am doing fantastic. I'm excited. You gave me a little bit of a hint as to what we're talking about, and you said we need to talk about time management. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, I thought this would be a good time to talk about the concept of time management, especially as a new father. You know, you find that you have limited time, not as much time as you once had. But you know, especially now that there's two and they can gang up on you, you got to be really careful with those precious moments.
Yeah, well, technically, you know, you're probably not sleeping as much, so you've actually got extra time to do things around the house, right?
Is that how that works?
I think so, yeah, because all of our best time is done at 3 a.m. when we can't sleep because of children. I'm just kidding. That's terrible advice. Don't do that.
That really is terrible.
Sorry. I'll let you give the advice on the show. How about that?
No, you can jump in, but you know, let's
okay.
Let's take it easy there with those 3 a.m. Best time to do your work.
Yeah, especially
ideas.
Construction work. Yeah, bad idea. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what spurred this for you? Why did you think this was the topic that we need to talk about today?
Really just kind of going into the idea of how important it is, especially in, I think, today's age where things are moving so fast, things are changing, the pace of the world. All of these things are really making us, I think, a little bit less efficient than we could be. Every ding on our phone, every new news story, you know, there's just so many things looking to gain our attention right now, and take us off of where our focus should be is on the task at hand that's in front of us. So, coming up with some ideas for productivity and time management, probably a good place to start and take a look at there. And you know, when we talk about time management, that's really a misnomer. We can't manage time. We can't create more time. As much as I keep praying for more time, we just can't do it. But what we can do is become more productive with the time that we have. And, you know, that's really what I want to just spend some time on is how to squeeze some more productivity out of the time we do have for those tasks between changing diapers and, you know, doing the dishes and all those other things that come up here.
Yeah, and honestly, I know that with the new baby, there's obviously changes to your entire household and your time and the ability to quote unquote manage time. What are you finding in your own personal life that's either you struggle with or that's helping you through this time? Not just the baby, but you're running a very successful business. You've got employees that are counting on you. You've got other people, you know, partners that are working with you. You really are spreading yourself around quite a bit. So tell me about that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. You know, you do have so many things. And, you know, I got this from one of the coaches I use, Peter Montoya, who does a lot of good work in this. And he really came up with the idea, or shared it with me, of having an action mantra, which is really just a saying that you say to yourself to kind of refocus on things. Some examples of that are, you know, just do it, the old Nike slogan.
Yeah.
One I'm seeing around quite a bit there, I think, on the memes and the interwebs right now is no one cares, work harder, which
yeah,
you know is a little straight and to the point, but when it comes to just putting your head down and getting your job done, I can think of a lot of the people I knew growing up, the older loggers and people who worked out in the woods where I grew up. That was really their mantra. Nobody cares if it hurts. Nobody cares if you don't want to be doing it. Just keep working harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I find an action mantra is a great way of trying to refocus things there. Another tool that I really like is the Eisenhower Matrix, or
Huh.
another way of saying that is the urgent importance matrix. So what I thought I'd do is just take a few minutes and describe what that looks like, and kind of give the listener some hints here of how to start thinking about some of the things that are on their to-do list every day, and how to prioritize those things, because this really comes down to what are you prioritizing in that list of tasks you have to get to each day.
Yeah, I'm really excited to hear about this. I mean, I've worked with people with time management for a very long time. I've actually never heard of the Eisenhower Matrix, so this is intriguing to me.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So, named after our 34th president, who was also a very successful general, helped win World War II for us. It's really just a way of thinking about what you have in front of you there. So, if we think of two axes, on the top we have important, on the bottom we have not important, and on the left-hand side we have urgent, and on the right-hand side we have not urgent. And so that kind of divides this up into 4 quadrants there. So we have an urgent and important quadrant in the top left-hand side. We have an important but not urgent in the top right-hand side. On the bottom left corner, we have urgent, not important, and then finally we have not urgent, not important. And so let's just talk through that and what that looks like. So really, if we're looking at that top left corner, that's really urgent and important. Think of those as crises and emergencies. Those are things that are urgent. They have to get done right away. Things that just kind of come out of the blue that can't wait. So that's kind of the most important category that can often take us by surprise there. Now, part of this is making sure that you're not just putting everything into that quadrant, because there certainly are some things that pop up that are urgent, but maybe not important, and they are going to drop down into that lower quadrant. The next one is, if we're looking at this, the important but not urgent category. And this, I think, is really one of the most important categories for us to focus on.
Okay.
This is really where I think we do some of our most high value work. These are the things where you need more time, maybe more creativity is needed. This is really where you're doing your planning, your preparation, your thoughtful and creative work. So that upper right quadrant is really where you probably want to spend a good amount of time when you're prioritizing your day. Now, what can happen, though, is things can migrate from that important but not urgent category over into the urgent category if you don't take care of them in a timely fashion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if it's doing your taxes in January, it's important, not urgent. On April 14th,
Important and urgent.
It's important and urgent.
Yeah. And the first thing that came to mind when you brought this up was paying bills, right? Because a lot of people, I remember the old days where, I guess I'm dating myself now, but my wife we'd sit down and she'd get the checkbook out and she's going to do some bill paying, and we're doing that on a certain evening or whatever. Now it's more digital, but it's still the same thing where you need to make sure these bills are paid. It's important, but it's not necessarily urgent until okay, the due date's coming up and it's tomorrow. You can move that over to the other category, move that to the left. That makes perfect sense. I love that.
Perfect. And as you described that, I just visualize a Norman Rockwell painting of your wife guiding you through how to pay bills.
Yeah, exactly. She's got the abacus out. Sorry. I'm not that old. All right, maybe.
Okay, good. So that bottom quadrant there, where it's urgent but not necessarily important. So in that bottom quadrant, think of some things like, phone calls, some emails. Some phone calls are very important, but others, kind of just an interruption. Emails, much the same way. The amount of emails we receive, probably only 5 to 10% of those are things that really need our attention. A lot of those are just notifications and that sort of thing. So we probably don't want to spend a whole lot of time in that bottom quadrant there. And then finally, that last quadrant, not important, not urgent, those are really time wasters. Those
Hmm.
are social media, just surfing the internet, watching TV mindlessly.
Hmm.
And we're not saying that you can't do those things, but if you're trying to accomplish your to-do lists, probably not things you want to be doing during the time you've set aside to get things done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm all for kind of unwinding, unplugging your brain and relaxing every once in a while, but when you have other things that need your attention, that's a great way of losing that time that you've set aside to complete those tasks.
Hmm. Absolutely. So are you
Yeah.
recommending that those other three boxes be pretty much completely empty before you go into the not urgent, not important? Or do you have some other thoughts on that?
Yeah, and we'll kind of talk through some ideas here of how to prioritize this.
All right.
But yeah, really, you want to try to limit time wasters as much as possible, or really tightly schedule those.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, okay, I just need 10 minutes just to kind of unplug and go on Facebook or Twitter or just read the news, great, do that, but set a timer for it.
Yes.
That way, 10 minutes of web surfing doesn't turn into an hour, and you're trying to just figure out what you just bought on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
So really what we want to come back to there is just thinking about the things on our to-do lists and begin prioritizing those, so we're taking care of those things that are most important, and then looking at that urgency level.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as we would love to just be doing high value work all the time, it's often not possible because of those things that are urgent, that do take away our attention. One book I really want to bring up is Deep Work by Cal Newport. This book I think came out last year. Cal is a professor talking about the ideas of time management here, and also the value of focused work. And this is really, I think, one of the best books when we're looking at that not urgent but important quadrant of how valuable it is to really set aside and schedule time to do that deep planning, that deep creativity, creative work that really we can get a lot of value out of, versus just kind of jumping from, urgent task to urgent task. Really a powerful book. I really cannot recommend it highly enough, as just a different way of looking at the way we're allocating our time throughout our day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that reminds me of something that I did with clients right off the bat, usually when I start working with a larger firm, is doing an off-site retreat. And it's incredibly important because what you're doing is you're disabling the ability to be interrupted by people within the office. So the people that were going on the retreat, we would go outside of the office, outside of that environment. They would not have their laptops and computers in front of them. We would shut the phones off as far as the alerts were concerned to do that deep work that they needed to do that you're speaking of, getting creative, looking at the growth for the companies and doing all these things. If you're constantly being distracted by other things, you just can't possibly focus and be as creative as you could possibly be if you're able to shut all that out and just have that time to let your brain do what it's supposed to do and be creative and create things that you want to create.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I set aside at least one day a week to really focus on, kind of those deeper long-term planning goals that we have. It's a day where I don't really meet with clients. I don't schedule phone calls or anything like that on that day. It's really a day for me to do that focused work. And I feel like that's extremely valuable, personally and to my practice.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, Royal. Also, you bring up a really good point as far as all the different alerts that we receive. For those that are working in business, or maybe they own their own business, and a computer is essential and email is essential, I've always, when I work with clients, the first thing I tell them is that you just have to help train the people around you of what the expectations are and how you're going to work most effectively. Meaning, if you I suggest that they turn off all their email alerts and they schedule time. They block some time every day, maybe twice a day usually, to go in and look at their emails. Because let's face it, nobody emails us saying, my house is on fire, bring a hose and a bucket, right? If there's something urgent, somebody's going to call you. And just helping people to understand, hey, if you email me, that's fine. But I have a couple times during the day that I retrieve emails, I look through them, I respond to them. So if I don't get back to you right away, it's okay. I am going to read your email today. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you do, or do you have a different method?
You're calling me out here. That is something I strive to do, and I am terrible at it. That is probably one of the areas where, I can definitely work to be better. But I tend to be checking my email, probably 5 or 6 times a day. And so that's a challenge for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I know I should be doing, half hour in the morning, half hour in the afternoon. But yeah, that's one of my weaknesses there is, okay, what's going on? What do people need? And oftentimes, just looking at those emails, sometimes there are important and urgent matters that need to happen. Mm-hmm. And other times, it can just wait until later on in the day where we set aside that time. But I think you bring up an important piece of all this is talking about Parkinson's law. And I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I am not.
But Parkinson's law basically just states work will fill to basically take up the time that you have to do it. So if you have 8 hours free to check all your emails and get them taken care of, it will probably take you 8 hours to fill. You'll just find different areas to kind of fill your time with. Maybe you'll get distracted. Maybe you'll get down this rabbit hole or that rabbit hole. But if you give yourself 20 minutes to get that task done, you'll be able to get it done in that period of time. So it's really looking at how much time are you giving yourself, or are you leaving it open-ended? Because if you leave something open-ended, you're going to procrastinate. Mm-hmm. You're going to take a lot more time than what's necessary to get that done. So that's where setting a time limit can be pretty beneficial to getting through a task. And if you need more time to get through it, schedule more time to take care of what wasn't finished that first go through. If you've ever looked at the Pomodoro method, which I think is a pretty powerful way of scheduling your work, that's really just looking at, a specified period of time. Sometimes it's, I think 22 or 27 minutes, where you just say, I'm going to work as hard as I can for 27 minutes. I'm not going to get distracted. I'm just going to be focused on the task at hand. And at the end of that, I'm going to take a 5 to 10 minute break. That's a great way of getting things done. We look at some of the statistics from employees and how much work they're getting done in a given day, and how much work is actually being accomplished. In an 8-hour shift, I think the average comes in that about 3 hours of work is done each day.
Wow.
And the rest is, just taken up with interruptions, tasks shifting, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing that we have also found during this time of COVID in 2020, that those businesses that shifted to people working from home, a lot of times the employees were more productive because they would do a task and they were able to walk away. Like, as my wife as an example, she would work for 2 or 3 hours and then she would walk away. When it was warmer, she'd go outside and do a little bit of weeding in the yard or do a little bit of landscaping that she liked to do for 20 or 30 minutes and then get right back to work. But it was so refreshing and rejuvenating that she was able to accomplish way more because of those kind of planned breaks, as opposed to being in an office 8 straight hours, and maybe have a lunch break, but the interruptions and everything else that are happening, we saw a lot more productivity in businesses across the country because of that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that depends on what your home's like.
True.
So if you have kids, there's 2 of you at home, there can often be a lot of distractions there that can really make that difficult. So, I think one of the interesting things about going through COVID that we'll see is, what does work look like afterwards? Because I think there's definitely going to be people who say, oh, I love working from home. I get so much more done. I'm much more productive. This is really great. And other people who are like, let me go back to the office so I can get away from my family.
True. Yeah, very true.
So just to take that into account as well. But no, I think you're absolutely right. So some of the interesting research done around that is the whole idea that when you get interrupted, someone pops their head into your office to ask a question, it takes you about 5 minutes to get back on track to the task you were doing. So if you're getting interrupted by an email or a coworker or a phone call, every 10 minutes or so, you're really not getting any work done because it's taking so long to reset your brain back to the task at hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree 100% with that.
And, that's one thing, talking about the whole idea of trying to ward off interruptions, of scheduling time with yourself. Scheduling time where, if you have an office where you shut the door and just say,
Yep.
I'm going to spend the next hour. Don't bother me with questions, phone calls, that sort of things, if possible. Not everybody has that opportunity, but it's certainly something where you can turn off your phone, turn off your email, and really try to focus in on that task to get it done. And try to do that higher value work that we talked about. So,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different strategies here. But the number one thing that you have to do is you have to kind of see and recognize that there's a problem there with the way we try to move through our day and prioritize those tasks.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if most people realize this, but most smartphones out there right now have a master button that is do not disturb. It will, your phone calls don't come through, texts don't come through. They're there, but it doesn't come up on your screen. It doesn't alert you by sound. And just like you said, if you could just do that for that 1 hour, you're
Did
able
you just
to.
describe the off button?
No, there is that too, but there is a do not disturb button. It's just right there. You click it and it'll tell you do not disturb is turned on until such and such time, and you can just always turn it off when you're done.
So with all that being said, one concept that I just want to kind of bring to the listeners is the to-do list. It's a revolutionary thing. You write down what you need to do, and then you do it.
Yeah. New technology.
Yes. So that's an oversimplification there. But one strategy that I've seen work really well is to just take a 4x4 Post-it note. So not too big. You can only fit about 8 to 10 things on a Post-it note if you're writing them out. And just take that every morning or every evening as you're preparing to leave for the day and write out your to-do list for the day or the next day. And then look through that list and start thinking about that Eisenhower Matrix of, okay, what's urgent and important? And then put an A next to that item. That's kind of the one of the top priorities there. Go through, find the things that are important but maybe not urgent. Put a B next to those. And then for those things that are going to pop up that are urgent but not really important, just put a C next to those. You probably won't have too many D's on there at all. But what that allows you to do is kind of say, okay, well, what are the things that I should really focus on getting done? What are the things that I have to get done? And what are the things that can probably just wait? And if I don't get to them, I don't get to them. And then from there, a couple of other strategies when you look through that list is if there's anything on your list where you need an input from other people. So if you need to schedule something, if you need a piece of information or a deliverable from a coworker, the first thing you should do is take those first thing in the morning and do those things. That way, you're not waiting until the end of the day to, try to schedule something with the coworker or get a piece of information, from the boss that you need to have to go on to the next task. So if you can get through those things kind of first thing, that's an excellent way of managing those tasks. Next, just kind of start going down through that list based on your priority. So what's the most urgent and important item? Okay, what's next? What's next? And begin working your way through that. One of the best books I've read on this concept is Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Brian's a great, very prolific writer about development, time management, a whole host of things. But Eat That Frog really is I think one of the best productivity ideas out there. Of the first thing you do in the morning is the hardest task. You go out there, you eat the frog because, as he puts in the book, if you eat the frog, everything else that you do the rest of the day won't be that bad.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
So just some ideas for our listeners to take as they're looking at their day. How can they really get more productive? You can't create more time, but you can create more productivity and efficiency. So, and what we'd love to hear from our listeners on is, what do they use? Do they have some tips and tricks that we can share with our listeners down the road of different ways that they manage their time or their responsibilities? So feel free to reach out by email or on social. Let us know what you think about productivity, and how do you deal with these ever-increasing demands on our time and attention.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I would love to hear from the audience. So please, by all means, what email should they send that stuff to, Royal?
Yeah, you can just email me at royal@opfa.com or info@opfa.com.
Perfect. Royal, thank you so much for your time today. This was a great podcast. Loved it.
Excellent. Good to talk with you.
You too. And our last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Life by Design podcast with Royal Standley. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Royal comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Life by Design podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The views expressed are those of the presenter and may not reflect the views of United Planners Financial Services. Material discussed is meant to provide general information and is not meant to be construed as specific investment, tax, or legal advice. Individual needs vary and require consideration of your unique objectives and financial situation. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Advisory services offered through Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, Inc. Securities offered through United Planners Financial Services of America, member FINRA and SIPC. Oregon Pacific Financial Advisors, Inc. and United Planners Financial Services are independent companies.